There are three foods sitting in refrigerators right now, in homes all across this country, that millions of people over 60 are reheating and eating without a second thought. And those three foods are quietly causing serious damage to their kidneys, their liver, their cardiovascular system, and their digestive health. And the tragedy is that most people have absolutely no idea that reheating these specific foods transforms them from safe nutrition into something that can trigger inflammation, stress your organs, and accelerate the very health problems you're trying to avoid as you age. My name is Dr. James Harlow. I have been practicing general and preventive medicine for over 20 years, and what I am about to share with you is information that most doctors never discuss with their patients because it simply does not come up in a standard 15-minute appointment. But I see the consequences of this in my clinic every single week. I see patients with unexplained digestive issues, mysterious inflammation markers, kidney function that is declining faster than it should, and when we dig deep into their daily habits, when we really examine what they are eating and how they are preparing it, we find the same pattern over and over again. They are reheating foods that should never be reheated, especially not after the age of 50. Let me tell you about a patient I saw about 6 months ago. Her name was Linda, 72 years old, retired school administrator. She came to my office complaining of chronic digestive discomfort, bloating after meals, and what she described as a general feeling of unwellness that had been getting progressively worse over the past year. She had seen a gastroenterologist who ran tests and found nothing structurally wrong. She had tried eliminating gluten, dairy, all the usual suspects. Nothing helped. She was frustrated and exhausted. When I sat down with Linda and went through her typical week of meals in detail, something jumped out at me immediately. She was cooking large batches of food on Sundays to save time during the week. Smart strategy, very common, especially for people living alone. But then she was reheating the same portions multiple times throughout the week, and one of the foods she was batch cooking and reheating repeatedly was rice. White rice, brown rice, rice mixed into casseroles. She was eating reheated rice almost every single day. I asked her how she was storing the rice after cooking it. She told me she let it cool on the counter for an hour or so before putting it in the refrigerator. Perfectly reasonable, right? That is what most people do. But that simple, innocent habit was the root of her problem. And when I explained to her what was actually happening to that rice during that cooling period, and then again when she reheated it, she was shocked. She had been poisoning herself slowly, day after day, with something she thought was one of the healthiest, safest foods she could eat. So let me explain what happens with rice, because this is the first food I am begging you to never reheat. And the reasons go far beyond what most people understand. Rice, especially white rice and brown rice, contains spores of a bacteria called Bacillus cereus. These spores are incredibly heat resistant. When you cook rice, even when you cook it thoroughly at high temperatures, these spores survive. They do not die, they just sit there, dormant, waiting. Now, if you cook rice and eat it right away, you are fine. The spores have not had time to do anything. But here is where it gets dangerous. When you cook rice and then let it sit at room temperature, even for just 30 minutes to an hour while it cools down, those heat-resistant spores wake up. They germinate, they start multiplying, and as they multiply, they produce toxins. These are not just any toxins. These are heat-stable toxins, which means that when you reheat that rice later, even if you reheat it until it is steaming hot, the toxins do not break down. They survive the reheating process completely intact. When you eat that reheated rice, you are consuming those toxins. And what do those toxins do in your body? They cause acute inflammation in your digestive tract. They stress your liver because your liver has to work overtime to filter and neutralize those toxins. They put pressure on your kidneys. And if you are doing this repeatedly, day after day, week after week, like Linda was, you are creating chronic low-grade inflammation throughout your entire system. Your immune system is constantly activated trying to fight off these toxins. Your organs are under constant stress. And over time, this contributes to the exact health decline that we associate with aging, but that is actually preventable. Now, if you have been reheating rice regularly and you had no idea this was a problem, I want you to write the word rice in the comments right now. And if this is the first time you are hearing that reheating rice can be dangerous, write learning below. I read every single comment, and I want to understand how many people are dealing with this so I can create more content that addresses what you actually need to know. And while you're down there, please make sure you are subscribed to this channel and that you have given this video a like, because this information could genuinely change someone's health, and the only way it reaches more people is if you help spread it. Let me be very clear about something. I am not saying you can never eat leftover rice. What I am saying is that the way you cool it, store it, and reheat it matters enormously, especially after the age of 60 when your digestive system is not as resilient as it used to be, when your immune system is not as strong, when your liver and kidneys are already working harder just from normal aging. If you are going to eat leftover rice, you need to cool it rapidly. As soon as the rice is cooked, spread it out on a shallow tray so it cools quickly, and get it into the refrigerator within 30 minutes. Do not let it sit on the counter for an hour. That 1 hour is all it takes for those bacterial spores to activate and start producing toxins. And when you reheat it only once. Do not reheat the same portion multiple times. Heat it thoroughly until it is steaming hot all the way through. Eat it immediately and throw away any leftovers from that reheated portion. Do not put them back in the refrigerator for later. The cycle of cooling and reheating multiplies the risk exponentially every single time. But honestly, after the age of 60, my professional recommendation is to avoid reheating rice altogether. Cook only what you are going to eat fresh. If you love rice, make it a fresh side dish, not a meal prep staple. Your digestive system, your liver, your kidneys will thank you. The second food I need you to stop reheating is chicken. And I know this is going to be controversial because chicken is a staple protein for so many people, especially people trying to eat healthy, trying to get enough protein, trying to avoid red meat. But reheated chicken, particularly if it has been stored improperly or reheated multiple times, becomes a completely different substance from a health standpoint. Here is what happens. Chicken is a protein-rich food, and proteins are made up of long chains of amino acids. When you cook chicken the first time, the heat denatures these proteins, which is normal and safe. But when you cool that cooked chicken and then reheat it, especially if you reheat it at high temperatures in a microwave or on a stove, the protein structure changes again. The proteins break down further into compounds that are much harder for your digestive system to process, especially the aging digestive system of someone over 60. But that is not even the biggest problem. The biggest problem is bacterial contamination. Chicken, even when fully cooked, can harbor bacteria that are not completely eliminated by cooking. Salmonella, Campylobacter, these are bacteria that can survive in cooked chicken if the internal temperature did not reach high enough levels throughout the entire piece of meat. And when you store that cooked chicken in the refrigerator and then reheat it, especially if you do not reheat it evenly or thoroughly, you are creating the perfect environment for those bacteria to thrive. I treated a patient last year, a man in his late 60s named Robert, who ended up in the emergency room with severe food poisoning. He had bloody diarrhea, vomiting, fever, dehydration so severe that he needed intravenous fluids. When the hospital ran cultures, they found Campylobacter. And when we traced back what he had eaten, it turned out he had reheated leftover chicken that had been in his refrigerator for 4 days. He had cooked a whole chicken on Sunday, stored the leftovers, and was eating reheated portions throughout the week. By Thursday, that chicken was contaminated, and reheating it in the microwave for a couple of minutes was not enough to kill the bacteria that had multiplied. Robert recovered, but it took him 3 weeks to feel normal again. 3 weeks of weakness, digestive problems, loss of appetite. And here is the part that most people do not realize. Food poisoning in someone over 60 is not just an uncomfortable few days. It can trigger serious complications. It can cause severe dehydration that stresses your kidneys and your heart. It can cause electrolyte imbalances that affect your cardiac rhythm. It can weaken your immune system for months afterward, leaving you vulnerable to other infections. In extreme cases, it can be life-threatening. But even if reheated chicken does not give you acute food poisoning, even if you are careful about storage and reheating temperature, there is still the issue of protein breakdown and digestive stress. When you eat chicken that has been reheated, your stomach and intestines have to work much harder to break down those altered proteins. This can cause bloating, gas, indigestion, and over time, chronic inflammation in your gut lining. Chronic gut inflammation is linked to everything from nutrient malabsorption to increased risk of cardiovascular disease to accelerated cognitive decline. So, what should you do instead? If you want to cook chicken in advance, cook it, let it cool quickly, and eat it cold. Cold chicken in salads, cold chicken sandwiches, chicken that you slice and eat straight from the refrigerator without reheating. That is safe. The proteins have not been repeatedly heated and broken down. The bacterial risk is lower because you are not going through a reheating cycle that might not reach safe temperatures throughout. Or better yet, cook chicken fresh each time you want to eat it. I know that takes more time. I know that goes against the meal prep culture that is so popular right now. But your health after 60 is worth the extra 15 minutes it takes to grill a fresh chicken breast or bake a fresh piece of chicken thigh. Your digestive system, your immune system, your overall vitality will be better for it. And now the third food, the one that surprises people the most when I tell them about it. Spinach. And not just spinach, but any leafy green vegetables like kale, Swiss chard, arugula, collard greens. These are foods that everyone thinks of as superfoods, as the healthiest things you can possibly eat. And they are when you eat them fresh or freshly cooked. But when you reheat them, they undergo a chemical transformation that creates compounds that are genuinely harmful, especially to your cardiovascular system. Leafy greens are naturally high in nitrates. Nitrates themselves are not bad. In fact, your body can convert nitrates into nitric oxide, which is actually beneficial for blood vessel health and blood pressure regulation. But here's the problem. When you cook spinach or other leafy greens and then store them and reheat them, bacteria in the food, even in refrigerated food, start converting those nitrates into nitrites. And nitrites, particularly when consumed in significant amounts repeatedly over time, are problematic. Nitrites can interfere with your blood's ability to carry oxygen. They can contribute to the formation of compounds called nitrosamines, which are known carcinogens. They can cause oxidative stress and inflammation in your blood vessels. And for someone over 60 who may already be dealing with high blood pressure, arterial stiffness, or other cardiovascular issues, consuming reheated spinach regularly is adding an unnecessary and preventable risk factor. I had a patient, a woman in her mid-70s, who was doing everything right from a dietary standpoint. She had cut out processed foods, she was eating tons of vegetables, she was focused on heart health because her father had died of a heart attack. Every Sunday, she made a big batch of spinach and vegetable soup. Healthy, right? And then she would eat that soup for lunch and dinner throughout the week, reheating a bowl every time. She thought she was being so health conscious. But when we ran her blood work, her nitrite levels were elevated. Her inflammatory markers were higher than they should have been. And when I explained to her what was happening with the spinach in that soup every time she reheated it, she was devastated. She could not believe that something she thought was so good for her was actually working against her cardiovascular health. We changed her approach. She started making fresh vegetable soups in smaller batches, soups that she would eat within 1 or 2 days without multiple reheating cycles. If she wanted to meal prep, she would prep the vegetables, keep them raw in the refrigerator, and cook them fresh each day. Within 2 months, her inflammatory markers had improved significantly. Now let me address what I know some of you are thinking. You are thinking, Dr. Harlow, people have been reheating food for generations. Our grandparents reheated leftovers. People have been eating leftover rice and chicken and spinach forever. Why is this suddenly a problem now? And that is a fair question. But here's the answer. First, our grandparents' generation did not have the same level of chronic disease that we are seeing now. The rates of diabetes, heart disease, kidney disease, liver dysfunction, inflammatory conditions, all of these have skyrocketed in the past 50 years. And while there are many factors contributing to that, cumulative exposure to dietary toxins, bacterial contamination, and inflammatory compounds from repeatedly reheated foods is absolutely part of the picture. Second, our grandparents were not living as long as we are living now. The average life expectancy was significantly shorter, so the cumulative damage from decades of reheating certain foods did not have as much time to manifest. But now, people are living into their 70s, 80s, 90s, and the question is not just how long you live, but how well you live. Do you want to spend your later years dealing with chronic digestive issues, declining kidney function, cardiovascular problems that could have been prevented? And third, the way we store and reheat food has changed. Most people now use microwaves, which heat food unevenly. Hot spots and cold spots in the same dish. The hot spots might be scalding, but the cold spots might not reach temperatures high enough to kill bacteria. Our grandparents reheated food on the stove or in the oven, where the heat was more consistent and thorough. The method matters. So what do I want you to take away from this? I want you to start thinking about food safety and food preparation differently, especially after the age of 60. Your body is not as forgiving as it used to be. Your digestive system does not bounce back from bacterial exposure the way it did when you were 30. Your liver and kidneys do not process toxins as efficiently. Your immune system does not fight off contamination as effectively. Every single choice you make about what you eat and how you prepare it has a bigger impact now than it did when you were younger. If you are someone who meal preps because it is convenient, because it saves time, because it helps you stick to a healthy eating plan, I am not telling you to stop meal prepping entirely. I am telling you to be strategic about which foods you prep and how you handle them. Prep your vegetables and keep them raw until you are ready to cook them fresh. Cook proteins fresh each time, or if you absolutely must cook them in advance, eat them cold rather than reheating them. If you cook grains like rice, cook only what you will eat fresh and avoid storing and reheating. These are small changes. They might take a little more time. They might require you to adjust your routine. But the payoff in terms of reduced inflammation, better digestive health, less stress on your organs, and overall vitality is absolutely worth it. You are not being overly cautious. You are being smart. You are protecting the body that needs to carry you through the next 20, 30, 40 years of your life. And let me say one more thing, because I think this is important. A lot of the health advice out there for seniors focuses on what you should not eat. Do not eat sugar. Do not eat processed food. Do not eat too much red meat. And all of that is valid, but what we do not talk about enough is how you prepare and handle the healthy foods you are eating. You can be eating all the right foods, all the vegetables and lean proteins and whole grains, but if you are storing them improperly, reheating them carelessly, and consuming bacterial toxins and inflammatory compounds in the process, you are undermining all the good you are trying to do. Food safety is preventive medicine. The way you cool, store, and reheat your food is just as important as the nutritional content of that food. And this is especially true for rice, for chicken, for leafy greens, the three foods I have highlighted today. These are not the only foods that can be problematic when reheated, but they are the most common, the most frequently reheated, and the most likely to cause the kind of chronic cumulative damage that shows up as unexplained health decline years down the road. So starting today, I want you to make a commitment. I want you to commit to treating your food with the same care and attention that you would treat medication. Because in many ways, food is medicine. It either supports your health or it undermines it. And the choices you make in your kitchen, the choices about what to cook fresh and what to avoid reheating, are choices that will directly impact how you feel today, tomorrow, and 10 years from now. Now, here's what I need from you before you go. I need you to like this video right now so that more people, more seniors who have no idea that reheating these foods is dangerous, can see this information. I need you to subscribe to this channel because I make videos like this every single week, covering the health topics that actually matter to people over 50 and 60, the things your doctor does not have time to explain in a standard appointment. And I need you to leave me a comment. Tell me if you have been reheating any of these three foods regularly. Tell me if you are going to change your habits. Tell me what other health topics you want me to cover next. Your comments guide everything I do here, and I genuinely read and respond to as many as I can. I truly hope this information helps you take better care of yourself and the people you love. Protecting your health after 60 is not about fear, it is about knowledge. It is about understanding that small, seemingly insignificant habits can have big consequences over time. and that you have the power to change those habits starting right now. You deserve to feel good. You deserve to have energy and vitality and a body that works well. And sometimes, all it takes is knowing which foods to cook fresh and which foods to never reheat. Take care of yourself. Pay attention to what your body is telling you, and I will see you in the next video.